Story 1. An unlikely friendship with my escort M early 30s. This year I felt like I was at the lowest point of my life. I've not been happy with my career and myself in general, even though from outside looking in, I have a life that most people among my peers look up to. I thought the source of my frustrations was due to lack of sex, so I looked into seeing an escort. After meeting up with one and saw her a few times, it didn't really change anything for me, so I took a break. A few months later, this lady B really caught my eyes, and I decided I was going to give it another try. B might have changed my life. I only wanted to see escorts in the first place because I liked the idea that it was purely transactional and meaningless, but she was different. I have a few friends in the industry, and I noticed some sex workers possess similar qualities, but you could have given me 100 guesses, and if I didn't know better, I would have never have guessed that she was a sex worker. We saw each other a few times, and it was good, but wasn't anything special. However, there were little bits and pieces through our small talks that I picked up, and it led me to keep going back to see her. Eventually, we sort of became friends, and we'd sit on the couch and just talk about our lives and struggles. Our relationship went from meaningless transactional sex to having an emotional connection and being true and genuine to each other. I realized B was not only intelligent, but also one of the most empathetic people I've ever met, and the cynical part of me just didn't believe many people like her existed, and that really drew me to her. For the first time, I've managed to really share about my vulnerabilities with her, and it turned she did the same. I always loved that she'd tell me the wildest sex stories, but with a nonchalant delivery, because they weren't a big deal to her. She'd also tell me about this abusive ex situation that she can never seem to move on from. And I could tell that her mood was often affected by that. I've always hated the term catch feelings, as it sounds incredibly binary, and I believe human emotions are nuanced and complex, but I think I did really fall for her. I was seeing her every week, and she gave me something to look forward to and took all of my stress and negativity away. I had a positive outlook on life for the first time in a while. Since I'd only saw 2 providers up until that point, I asked her if it was normal for us to have this kind of connection. She told me I was the only one that had this dynamic with her. I knew she wasn't lying because almost all of her reviews mentioned how quiet and reserved she was. B was popular and had raised her rates over time, but she not only kept the original rate for me but gave me a discount on top of it. I didn't think it at the time, but in retrospect, it was almost as if I was paying her, just so I have a reason to say that the line of a transactional relationship wasn't crossed. But to me, we were obviously past that. We kept this going for 3 or 4 months, and I was probably at the happiest as I've been, and things were great. Eventually, I noticed she started slowly peeling back from me. It made me a little sad, as I wasn't sure if it was something that I did. Comes holiday, I was feeling burned out from work, and I needed to get out of the city for a little bit and clear my head. I noticed she also seemed like she could use one too. So out of the blue, I asked if she'd want to go out with me as a friend. It was obviously a big jump, and I never expected her to say yes. But to my surprise, she agreed. We made little plans and flew there separately. We spent an evening together, walking in pouring rain. The maps on our phones weren't working right, so we a bit got lost, then ate at an overpriced Italian restaurant, and made our way to a shitty strip club drinking $20 Jack and Cokes. On surface, that might have sounded like a nightmare, but guess what? I had the time of my life because it was with her, and I'd like to believe she had fun too. She'd tell me enjoyment comes from doing things with the person you're doing with, not necessarily the activities themselves, and she couldn't be more right. Later that night, as we held hands and walked back to the hotel together, we discussed what we wanted to do the next day, and I was so looking forward to it. Then things went downhills from there. I noticed she didn't sleep and was on her phone the whole night. Next morning, I asked if she wanted to talk. She said she had to leave because the ex-boyfriend was no longer an ex, and they'd gotten back together. As much as she wanted to have a good time with me, she felt guilty about it. I'd pictured countless scenarios where the trip could have gone south and we don't see each other again, but never in a million years where I could have guessed that this was going to be how it ends for us. I felt numb and broken. We talked for a long time and at the end hugged for a whole minute. As I was ready to let go, I could feel that she was still holding on to me, so we kept it a little longer. I wish time could have just stopped there, and that would have been a perfect ending in a different way. Sort of like the movie La La Land. That was the last time I saw her. One of the last questions before she left I asked was if we could have dated if our situations were different, and whether or not I'd see her again. And she said yes, and she'd email me. However, she never did email me back. A week, then 2 weeks went by with nothing, and I realized then that I've already heard from her for the last time. I've tried to reach out a few times via email and text, and she'd just leave me on read. I assumed she'd moved on and was living a happy life ever after. That's what I wanted to believe anyway, so I could have a reason to move on myself. When we were seeing each other here were lines that I was hesitant on crossing because I didn't want to ruin what we had. But when I came to terms with myself that I probably wasn't ever going to see her again, I'd written her and let her know about how I really felt about our relationship and how she's changed my life for the better, even though I had no clue if she'd even read it. Over time, my feelings went from missing the intimacy that we once shared to simply missing her as a friend. After B, I learned to open up myself more and be vulnerable and talk about my feelings with my own group of friends, and through the stories that they shared, it helped me gain a perspective and become a better person. Without really ever saying goodbye to B, I was missing a proper closure, and that always left a hole within me. I've tried seeing a couple of different escorts to take my mind off of B, but I was right. I knew I'd hit the jackpot with her and it wasn't going to happen again. I met my last provider a few weeks ago, and it went well. We spent most of the session talking, and I shared about my story with her, and she let me know with her almost a decade experience what I had was indeed rare, and I wasn't being delusional. I took solace in that, and it made me feel better. I'm glad she and I met because I realized through her that this whole time I was trying to replicate what I had with B. That was never going to happen. So it became easy for me to stop looking for it, and I was done seeing escorts again. Few months went by, and as I forced myself to put on a smiley face and move on, out of nowhere one day I received an email from her stating that she couldn't reach out because she was in bad situation, and she just wanted a friend to talk to. My heart dropped for her as I genuinely wanted to believe she was happy and doing great, but I was happy she didn't just forget about me. Unfortunately, I haven't heard from her since. I feel if and when we do meet again, I can no longer see her as a provider because I've shared too much, and if there's a path for us going forward, we'd become real friends. I hope it happens soon. Story 2. Reaching out to an ex. Me and my ex-girlfriend broke up on very mutual terms while I was overseas. The long distance was difficult for the both of us, but we told each other love you and to take care. I asked if she would still be okay with seeing each other when I return home, and she said absolutely, I will make time. We ended the FaceTime time there. She texted me 2 weeks after to check in, friendly conversation, very short. I then checked in with her as we were wrapping up our deployment. She updated me on her situation, sent photos, very friendly and mutual texting, and I gave a friendly response. I was then left on delivered. She still has me on everything, private story and all. I am an overthinker, so I think the worst, but I find it strange also. Anyways, I am now home. So far I feel good to be back for some time, seeing family, friends, but my God, do I want to text her and ask the question of seeing one another, but I am so unsure if she would be upset given that she left me undelivered. I am struggling in social settings as I always do, especially after a deployment. Went to a college party with my friends and I just couldn't get myself to flirt with any girls. I am just not that guy. I really did and was seriously in love with this girl. Being in the armed services and in the more intense work setting, Ifiquim really was difficult. We ended on friendly terms. We complimented each other and how much we both appreciated our time together and that we at least tried to do long distance. Would really like to hear some people's advice. It is a unique situation. I do not want to be the guy that sends a text like this despite being undelivered. I just simply really do miss her. Even if it is platonic and not romantically involved, I do not care. Being away overseas for months, thousands of miles away, and to have someone call and break up with you is not a great feeling, to say the least. I couldn't say much and I didn't want to beg. I gave her the respect on her decision, and like I said, kept it mature and sweet. In the end, I have never felt this way about a girl before. I enjoyed being alone, truly. But when I met her, I enjoyed her company more than my own. That is when I knew she was different. Aside, is it a bad idea to reach out or just keep things buried and just leave it alone? Story 3. My GF always makes comments about my weight and is cheating on me. I, 28M, have been with my girlfriend, Tabitha, 26F, for about 8 months. I'm overweight, and while I'm not always the most confident about it, I've come to terms with my body over the years. Tabitha is thin and very into fitness, but when we started dating, she seemed to accept me for who I am. However, as time went on, she began to make constant jokes and comments about my weight. At first, it was subtle stuff like, maybe you should skip dessert tonight, or imagine how great you'd look if you lost just a little weight. She even started joking around our friends, calling me her project or future gym buddy. I tried to laugh it off, but it started to really hurt. I asked her to stop several times, but she always said I was being too sensitive and that she was only trying to help me be healthier. Then a few days ago, a friend told me that Tabitha has been cheating on me with her personal trainer. When I confronted her, she actually admitted it and said that she needed someone who could keep up with her lifestyle. I was heartbroken. The worst part is, after she admitted to cheating, she made another jab at my weight. She said, "You know, if you took better care of yourself, you wouldn't have to worry about people leaving." That hit me like a ton of bricks. I completely lost it. I told her that her constant jabs about my weight were cruel and unnecessary, and that her cheating had nothing to do with my body and everything to do with her selfishness. Now, she's furious and says I'm the one who should apologize for how I handled the situation. Honestly, I feel so lost and broken right now. I just needed to get this off my chest because I'm so tired of feeling like I'm not enough just because of my size. Thanks for listening. Edit. Thanks to everyone who said that I should dump her. I have a dinner with her tonight, and I'm planning to leave her before the dessert. Also, I've lost about 160 pounds in 2 years through exercising and changing my food, so I don't think these comment about what should I change is important here. Edit 2. We met at the gym precisely. I had a tibia injury and I couldn't move for 1 month according to my surgeon. This is the only reason why I didn't train for a few weeks. She had this relationship during this month,